we all have our feels in a way, and we should all be okay feeling and leaning into it. But at the same time, have compassion for yourself that you are worthy of charging your worth. Um, Specifically what you're offering is like, this isn't a time necessarily to be discounting your programs, or maybe if you did payment plans, like you can eliminate the interest charge, and like that can be your give, but you are worthy of also having survival in this. And the more you survive, the more you're able to give back. And you taught me this, Jesse, actually at our event, where you're like, money is not this horrible thing where rich people are evil. Like the more you make and the more abundant you are, the more generous you are as well.
Hello and welcome to the Success Sessions. My name is Jessie Johnson, coach to spiritual teachers and healers building seven-figure businesses. And I am so fucking thrilled to have my dear friend and colleague, Emily Merrell, founder of 6 Degrees Society. She hosts events all over the country, generally and historically live and in person, although at this moment, virtually, which I think is really, really interesting. And I will just add to this that Emily, I have worked with a lot of people who produce events. I have collaborated with lots of organizations that are designed to help people and women in particular network. Emily is top of the line. There's no one better than her. She is such an authentic, genuinely curious human being. And the rooms that she puts together are such a pleasure to be in. So there's literally no one I could recommend more highly than you, Emily, and I'm so honored that we get to spend this time together. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for joining me in my bedroom office today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, I want to ask you these kind of core questions of the interview, but I'm really curious actually to just start by hearing you speak a little bit about this massive pivot you've just gone through, because you have this live in-person event business, and nobody can be in the same room right now. So tell us just a little bit about how we find you in your bedroom.
So this is my new office and event space, both in person and virtually. It's actually funny. So the last event that I had in person was March 9th, and it was in LA. And I was totally one of those naysayers where I was like, ugh, my immune system is so strong. It is fine. I'm a healthy young person. Give me a hug. Like, enough of this elbow touching, which young Emily was so silly. And I'm so fortunate that I didn't get sick and nothing happened to anyone attending my events. But that week, I got back to San Francisco on that Wednesday. So that was a Tuesday. I got back Wednesday and everything started locking down essentially, or sheltering in placing on Friday. And I think on Friday I had like a proper pity party for myself and, gave myself time to mourn these grand plans. I was supposed to go to New York for some sponsored events the following week. I've already canceled 2 New York trips. I was supposed to be on a plane tonight. And I felt bad for myself. I truthfully did feel bad for about an hour. And then I was like, hold on. I've always been told or been wanting to be online and be virtual, but I made excuses for it. Like, oh, people would obviously choose the in-person over online, who'd attend these events. No one's interested. How do I hold the curated matches? All of these excuses and resistances. And I was like, you know what? I'll use myself as a guinea pig, and I have one event that I teach called How to Network Like a Pro. I threw it up and saw if people would be interested, and we sold out. And then I started asking the speakers. We're pretty good at planning our events out pretty, like months in advance. So I gave all of my speakers the opportunity to either postpone or to pivot, and it was about 50-50. And it's been remarkable. And now we're in week 4, and I've hosted anywhere from 3 to 5 events a week. I've changed the times. We've done 1-hour events. We've done morning events. We've done evening events. What's awesome is, where New York is my biggest market, I'm based in San Francisco, and we do our events now at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, 7:30 p.m. East Coast time, and we're able to get this draw of individuals from Chicago, from Ohio, from Austin, from Portland, from all over, who always wanted me to create a chapter there, who, people always say they want something, and now it's interesting to see like how they're showing up. So your long question, the long answer to your simple question is, it has been incredible and very expansive for me, because I also have been able to do some reflecting on like how my events, like the ROI on my events. An event right now takes me about 4 hours to produce, so to speak, like getting to the event space. Living in San Francisco, you take Uber Pool or Lyft line, and it takes like an hour. And then I get there an hour in advance. And then I have to grocery shop, and then I have to break down. And I'm like exhausted actually thinking about all of the things that we did with IRL events. And here my commute, it could be in my bed. And there's some nights that I've actually hosted from my bed. It could be in my living room. I share an 850 square foot apartment with my husband, who is on Zoom calls all day too, has not mastered the art of headphones. And so we are learning to compromise. And it's been really awesome. Like I think a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of texts and emails being like, I'm so sorry that you have to go through something like this. And I'm like, what? This is amazing. This is so cool. I have so much more room for my coaching clients, for my creative side of myself. So it's been like an accidental blessing, I think.
It's so inspiring. And I'll tease one of your Ohio participants, because like we could, if we wanted, say that they catalyzed this COVID-19 crisis just so they could have 6 Degrees events.
Yes. Totally. Blame Ohio or Seattle.
Yeah. It's so important. I think it's so important for people to hear not just the kind of, positive spin, but such a concrete example. There's so many businesses that are focused on real life event production that have just completely tanked during this time. And to hear you describe your willingness to like feel the feels and be bummed and throw the pity party, and then at the same time like wake up and ask yourself, what else can I do here? Like there's an opportunity here.
Do you know what's funny is my I only lasted in the corporate world 6 years, and now I've been in this world about 5 years. But I was someone that would jump around job to job when things got slow or boring. So in a weird way, I feel like this was the universe being like, you're like thinking of maybe doing something else with your life. Let me throw some challenges your way. And I love solving problems. And this was an easy problem to solve. And even the fact that we're able now to create these recordings, and we're working on with our developers on the back end to create like a portal. So if you missed an event, you can go back and you can watch an event happen, and invite a friend from across the country and see their face. But the coolest thing, I think my biggest takeaway is I have this like world domination goal of creating connections across the world. And we've had people, my virtual assistant's based in Macedonia, and she signs on at 1 a.m. for our events and is connecting with everyone. And we had a member who is on this like remote year in college, and she's now in Taiwan, and she signed on. And just being able to create these friendships and these like, I don't know, these energy currents from coastal, both the coast or all the, all around the country to like a global way is really cool for me.
I want to emphasize this for another reason, because I again, what I spoke about you before is so true. I just think that the space that you hold is so potent and deep and authentic and rich. The event that we did together was one of my highlights of my whole professional life. I mean, it was really like really quality. And so as people are, I think many people are really enjoying the solitude that they're getting to like now have permission to experience. But there's a lot of people who don't know what to do with themselves and are looking for ways to connect, whether it's professionally or personally right now, and don't know where to go. They need to go to your events.
And men are welcome too. Like we're female focused, but men are welcome. We did a mastermind the other night the other afternoon, I don't know, yesterday, 2 years ago. Um, my sense of time is gone. But it was really great. It was 9 women and 1 male photographer. And if you've never done a mastermind before, everyone essentially has the time in the spotlight to like be problem solved for. And that was really cool to get like outside perspectives that you might not normally get. And I think everyone's just really generous with their times. And I think the thing that also really excites me, in addition to like these friendships blossoming, is seeing this collaboration really taking form without me even having to be like, you should collaborate with this person. It's just happening. Like I looked on Instagram the other day, and one of my clients, actually 2 of my clients, they were both collaborating with one another, and they're like, oh, Instagram live with this lady at this time. And it's like, that happened because they met.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
I love that. So important. So yes, the opportunities are always there, even in, and sometimes especially in, the dramas of global crisis.
Yep.
And the resources that you want are also here. So those that are listening, that are like feeling the call to more, whether it's in your business or in your social life or in your professional community, the resources are there, and Emily is holding many of them. So we'll talk about that more.
We did astrology last night. Tonight we're doing breath work. Tomorrow we're talking about disconnection, how to stay connected and disconnected from technology all at once. So it's all
brilliant.
And then you get to hear the ambiance of my husband and dog in the background of everything. It's great.
So while we're talking about it, actually, let's just tell people, if they are interested and they want to attend an event, where do they go?
So you can actually get your first event on me. Like what I said, I really want the whole world to be a part of this. So if you go to 6degreessociety.com and go to the events tab, you can purchase your first event and sign up using code virtual SDS at checkout, or follow us on Instagram. We just launched a podcast, which I've been able to record like 12 episodes of my first podcast that just went live today. And,
yes.
and these were all things that I had excuses for. Like, I never have time, or like, I don't have energy to do that. And the energy is here when I've definitely been able to stay busy. My coworker has been very happy as well,
Hi, cutie.
This is Daisy. She's bored.
Oh my goodness.
Not enough.
How fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this important call.
So sweet. I love that she gets to be here with us.
I know, right? She has a new bandana for every day too, because she has to express herself. She gets to choose them. Today she was really
good.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting. We're just going in reverse order, but this is just the next question that wants to come through. You used this language before we started the recording, and I want to come back to it because you're doing a phenomenal thing right now.
Thanks.
Something that a lot of people are resisting doing, frankly. And the language that you used really struck me, that people are resisting really shining and thriving during this time because of survivor's guilt. So I would love to hear you speak more about that and how it is that you're navigating not being stopped by that, or maybe even not even feeling that.
Yeah. I don't feel survivor's guilt. And I also went through a lot of shit last year. I hope I can say shit on this podcast.
Anything.
Whatever. Last year my apartment burned down. Our wedding was evacuated 30 minutes before our wedding. My stepdad died that same week. Like, shit happened. I paid my dues last year in a way that I felt like last year was like my year of building tests. So I'm not saying, because all this stuff happened to me that you have to feel survivor's guilt, because I'm exempt from it this year. That being said, I also struggled with, I had a friend who was going through cancer at the same time my apartment burned down last year. And remember that feeling of being like, she felt such sadness for me, and she reached out to me and told me like how much she was holding space for me. And I remember feeling like, how am I supposed to be upset when you have cancer? And, there's this, it wasn't equal. And I started therapy at this point. it was a year where I definitely was very, very much endorsed therapy. but she said something like, just because you're going through something that doesn't feel as heavy or as significant, you can still feel that sadness or feel that feel and feel the feels. And so with this, I think we all have our feels in a way, and we should all be okay feeling and leaning into it. But at the same time, have compassion for yourself that you are worthy of charging your worth. Specifically what you're offering is like, this isn't a time necessarily to be discounting your programs, or, you know, maybe if you did payment plans, like you can eliminate the interest charge, and like that can be your give, but you are worthy of also having survival in this. And the more you survive, the more you're able to give back. And you taught me this, Jesse, actually at our event, where you're like, you know, money is not this horrible thing where rich people are evil. Like the more you make and the more abundant you are, the more generous you are as well, generally speaking, hopefully, you know, for most people. And it's funny, after our event, I got into like a big conversation and a big argument with my Uber driver. I never even told you this. And we were driving another hour in an Uber on my way somewhere. I think I was going back to Hollywood the next day after our event from Venice Beach. So it's like an hour Uber ride, essentially. We're passing these beautiful houses, more in like the, God, what part of town was it? Anyways, like Larchmont Village area. And I was like, wow, what stunning houses. And his response was like, those people aren't happy. And I was like, well, they might be happy actually. He's like, nope, more money, more problems, da, 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 da. And so I got really kind of combative, where I was like, actually, you could also be more generous, or you could have this, or you could have more family live with you, or, you know, look at all the opportunities. But that discussion really resonated with me, because I think that there is this, you know, so many people are losing their jobs, and a lot of people, you know, are struggling. That doesn't mean you have to be one of them, and you can be more supportive by not struggling. So I'm, you know, for me, in terms of like the way that I'm giving and taking, and I think give and take is such an important role to business in general. Like you're giving to me by being a part of my events, but you're taking by maybe getting a client at a set event. Like there's a give take aspect to every interaction and everything that is. So for me, like the free event is my give. And then if people enjoy them and they got a taste of what I'm offering and they want to be more involved, they can join as a member. They can, you know, buy another ticket on their own, but there's no pressure there.
Do you think that it would have been different for you if this quarantine time had happened before your big trauma year?
Yeah, probably. Like for me, I learned a lot of laughter and sense of humor and humility too. That was another text I've been getting a lot of, like, I'm so sorry that you have to go through all of this, you know, after your apocalyptic year. And for me, if this was happening to me in Silo or like just California, I think I would be feeling different feelings. But the sense that this is a global pandemic and this is happening to everyone, it's not distinguishing between wealth. It's not well, it is, and that's a whole different conversation about like, yes, there's different luxuries provided by socioeconomic classes, but like it's something that is happening across the world. And that to me makes it feel like we're all in this together versus like, oh, this is woe to me, this just happened to me. This is something that's happening to everyone.
You know, this also, I think that the way that you're speaking about it, I just want to give language to that I think that you are emblematic of the emotional maturity that is being demanded, and I think inspired by this time. And not everybody got it the first week, you know, and maybe even there are some people who are still negotiating that like you and I spoke about a variety of people who their response to the changes that we were forced to make in our businesses right around this change, when kind of the world was shifting from exactly what you described of like, this is not relevant to me, I'm doing my freaking event, to like, oh, everything is shutting down, everything has to change. that there were a lot of people who really quite kind of took that personally, felt like it was happening to them individually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the gift of times like these, that actually, when we're most in our personalization of the trauma, to actually have the rest of the world as a reflector to remind us that we're not alone can be so helpful. And I'm with you. I think it's been very empowering for everyone that I know to feel like, okay, this is happening. This is not anyone's personal preference, and we're in it together. There's something here that we can do together that we can't do alone. And thank God. Like,
Yeah.
it's a strange thing, because like it would actually be much easier in terms of the global crisis aspect of it if it were happening to many fewer people.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
for
at
sure.
the same time, the opportunities that are arising are unique because it is touching everyone. I think you're right that socioeconomic status, it's not that it's become irrelevant, but it's been, the playing field has been leveled
Tom Hanks
significantly.
can have it. Boris Johnson's in the hospital. Like, it's kind of, everyone is touchable with this. Like, everyone is potentially capable of getting it, which is nuts to think about. You're like, royalty, Prince Charles, come on, that's insane.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I also, in a different part of it, everyone who knows me is like, you're such an extrovert. You love people. Oh my God, you're always on the go. And in a way, last year when all the trauma happened, a lot of my whole mantra was like, when in motion, stay in motion. I just got to keep plodding ahead. So I keep like pulling myself forward and forward and forward. And this is the first time that I have no plodding ahead, so to speak. Like, there's no trips to keep myself, on the horizon. Like, I have a few weddings I'm supposed to go to. We'll see if they happen this year. I don't know. But I'm kind of forced to sit still. And for someone who is constantly on the go, I think you and I were like both, had been on like 6 planes, and that was February at that point. And, it's nutty to think about, like, this feeling of, I went to LA, I think 4 times from January to March 9th, 4 times. And this is the longest I've been in San Francisco. And for me, there's like this nesting about it, and also a feeling of like, not being obligated. And I think, reevaluating what my obligations are. Like, there's a lot of ego in my obligations. This feeling of like, oh, you have to go because you have to show face because you're so important. You need to be here. And I don't. And so that's been a really interesting wake-up call for me. And I also want to say, like, I work from home a lot, but I also work out of a co-working space, and I travel a lot, and I see people a lot. My husband, on the other hand, like, he typically drives an hour each day to work, and he's been more productive at home than he has said. I mean, according to him, like, more than he's ever been in the office. He's really struggling. Like, he's really struggling with this forced shelter in place. Like, he's still running. He's going to go run our dog shortly. But it's funny because I'm like, but it's not like you went night clubbing. You're like clubbing, or like, we're part of a supper club, or, we're doing all these things. But for him, it's the choice that is removed from being able to do things that is really he's struggling with.
That's interesting.
So it's interesting. Each one of us is dealing with it in such a unique way. Well, for me, I kind of like that the choice is taken away from me, I guess, like, and forcing me to.
There's a relief.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us are experiencing. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good.
Yeah, it started off about success, but here we are.
Well, so let's go back there, because I think that that'll actually like bring some pieces together in a really interesting way. So the question I promised I would ask you, how did you define success when you were young, and how were you wrong?
Oh my gosh, success. So I thought when I was young, and I think we talked about this in our car ride, I'm not sure, but I thought that the president, like, I felt bad for him because he was poor and he only had made $400,000 a year. And so I thought, like, $400,000 wasn't a lot of money. And I just had this, you had to be a millionaire to be successful.
Where did that idea come from?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure like underlying from like my dad was raised really privileged, but then like stripped away of it. Like he kind of enjoyed not being successful, even though his father was, while my stepfather was really monetarily successful, but came from nothing, but like, you know, first to go to college. So I think there was this sense of like sense and of your worth was how much money you made. And that's positively and negatively influenced me my whole life in so many different oscillations. And but yeah, I just remember that feeling of being like, oh, I'll be successful when I make like $1 million and have multiple houses, not just one house, multiple houses. And I'll probably have 3 kids by 25. So how many of those are real right now? Not any of them. I'm married, and like that, you know, I never really equated like marriage to success, which I'm grateful for. But I did equate it to like a check mark on my to-do list of my life. Like that was important. And having kids is important. Although hearing the stories of people with kids right now is very much an act of birth control. For sure. I'm so sorry if you have children, but like I'm having a dog right now has been awesome. And having bottles of wine readily available have been awesome. But yeah, success is, to me, like the more I think about success, it's like this feeling equated with generosity. Like I just want to be more capable of taking care of others and being able to be like, I want to surprise my girlfriends and fly us all first class to an island somewhere. And I want to be able to like be like, I've got the bill, and not really be feeling like, what the fuck did you do? Why did you get the bill? You can't afford the bill. But we come from a place of generosity. So, and also it's this feeling of rootedness, and having something that can't be taken away from you. So like a house, I think is a symbol of like rootedness. It can be taken away from you. Foreclosures happen all the time, so on and so forth. But like being able to buy a house and be like, this is ours. I think that has a success element to it.
It's super interesting to hear you speak about these things, because in many ways the form
success for her is getting in my pants. Go burrow. She's in my legs now. All right.
So much of the form that the success that you described thinking of as a child and now, there maybe it's not exactly the same, but it's not like a 180 black and white difference, but the energetics underneath. When I heard you describe it, the wealth piece from the child perspective, it felt like a lot about status.
Yeah.
And now about generosity, and the energy of status and generosity are so different. And so I think that's really powerful. And I also have to say, I'm struck that your apartment burned down.
Oh yeah.
Like, given the way that you're relating to that sense of rootedness, like for you to still claim that as one of the things that really matters to you and that you value, I think there's gotta be a kind of, I don't know, like Buddha-like relationship to that, because you've been through losing your house.
Well, and I think that is interesting, where like I also am very good at being a gypsy, and I'm, you know, my parents were divorced, are still divorced, and the way that they raised us, it was 2 weeks at my mom's house, 2 weeks at my dad's house. So neither house, my mom's house always felt more like my home. And it had more of my personality, while the other one was kind of like checking into a hotel and then back and forth. So I've always been really good at like packing up myself in a suitcase and then unpacking it or leaving it in the suitcase for 2 weeks and then going back and forth. So for me, losing the apartment, I wasn't as uncomfortable like staying at hotels or staying at people's apartments or whatnot. Well, it was interesting. My husband was like, we need to find an apartment stat. And so my role in that was back to like, okay, we got to find an apartment. We need to start searching and doing. But Yeah. I mean, have you ever had those moments when you look at your closet and you're like, oh, I just wish a fire would happen so I can like start from scratch?
Uh-huh.
So literally after it happened, my mom's like, well, you've been wanting this. Like you don't like anything in your wardrobe. And I was like, well, not like literally. We're not figuratively
Yeah.
about it. But it also like, I think I've had 3 experiences that have helped me separate myself from material things. One was being robbed when I was in Argentina. I was in the bathroom. My big backpack got robbed. My friend was watching it, and it had like, I don't know, it had my juicy velour sweatpants in it and like stuff that now, thank God, it got robbed in a way. Like we don't need that stuff. But, letting it go and like feeling that appreciation, Marie Kondoing that feeling of like, I loved those things. They lived a good life. Now they're on. And then the second time was losing all of my pictures before iClouds existed. And just like my whole computer just shut down. And those memories, which now our brain is not capable of like recalling all of them, that was my shared hard drive, so to speak. And I think those things and then the apartment like have been ways of not tethering me to like physical things, but the idea of building a house or the idea of family is still an important pillar. And the idea of like, it's not status, I think, is still an undertone. Like I want to be known in the world, but I always think about, so my stepfather was someone who really cared about his status. And he, he was an actor before he became a very successful businessman. And at his funeral, it was in a way, like this death of a salesman, like how he always talks about all of the people that he wants to have be there, but no one comes to his funeral. But everyone came to his funeral. Like he had the most extraordinary versions of his clients, like emceeing his funeral. He would have been the happiest to see it. And I understand that legacy aspect of it. Like I want to be remembered for something in the world. And I think everyone wants to be remembered for something, but there is that like legacy aspect of me. Like I want to be remembered for doing good in the world. And, or you think of networking and it's synonymous for me or whatever it is, there is this ego part of me that the status is still important.
Everything that you're talking about actually is resonant. I keep seeing this sort of yin yang, or like the simultaneous duality and unity of things. And it also, in the last thing that you were talking about, made me think about Gary Vee, who for years has been saying simultaneously, when I die, they're going to build huge statues of me and no one's going to remember me. Like, look at Michael Jackson. And I've heard him say this in multiple interviews. Look at Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson is arguably the most famous human being to ever live on the planet. And people were bent out of shape about him dying for a little longer than usual. And then the world went back to normal. Like both are real. This sort of understanding that we have the opportunity to leave a legacy, and that legacy is up to us to create and deliver. And at the same time, in fact, it is in service to that legacy to also remember that no one's fucking gonna care. It's all like, it's in so many ways, and that both are true at the same time, I think that's what I'm getting as I listen to you describe this sort of the mature version of your childhood definitions.
Yeah.
Before you talk, it's like actually a lot of those elements of childhood are still very prominent for you, but they have a more well-rounded understanding.
Sorry, the dog's being taken away for a run now. So you're getting a play-by-play of all of this.
Great.
This is real life, guys. No, but I completely agree. And I think it is interesting, and thank you for illuminating that a little bit more, even for me, because, the status part is, the idea of like dressing up and going to a gala or being honored at a gala, I think are still kind of the fairy tale things that you grew up learning about, like Cinderella goes to a ball and whatnot. So like, there's that aspect of life that also comes with status, and that involves usually typically having enough money to be on a board of something like this and blah, 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 blah. And so, but then at the same time, like, success for me is living a really healthy life and living it to my fullest with like amazing people, and only surrounding myself with people that bring me up and, you know, support and love and motivate and challenge, and just like living a fulfilled life. And, you know, the girl that I was talking about with the cancer, she ended up passing in February, and she was my age. She was a little younger than I am, has 2 kids. And like, talk about feeling all the feels about your life and being like, okay, if this happened, if I was her right now, like, how would I feel about the end of my life? And, you know, really, really taking an examination of like what I've created and what I've done, and knock on wood, and I remain healthy for several more years, but like, I'm really grateful for the life that I've built, and I feel very, very fortunate. You know, for anyone that's like wavering on, oh, I'm not satisfied. Like, I don't feel satisfied in my day job, or I'm not satisfied in what I'm doing, or that relationship. Like, I'm so grateful that I made the leap and I listened to that itchy side of me when I did, because I would, and I think she did too, which made me really, like, I feel like she's a very positive spirit out there. But that feeling of like, what a bummer if you're at the end of your days and then you're like, oh, well, I didn't live. And so I think success is living in a way that makes you feel really proud, where you don't feel, and no one's going to ever be on their deathbed first and foremost to be like, oh, I wish I worked harder, or I wish I worked more. But maybe it's like, I wish I had done my dreams, or I wish I had explored this side of myself. Or, you know, I've recently, a family friend of ours, her husband, after 35 years, told her that he was actually leaving her for a man. And this was a side of himself that he had known about for so long. And then he had like a wake up call and realized, like, I'm never going to have this time back again. And I want to do it now, you know? So I think that's super contrived and cliche as this sound, but like living your truth and exploring those like little itches and whispers in a way that you can. And even if it means that you can't do it full time, I'm not someone to advocate to be like, drop everything and like go into financial ruin to pursue your dreams, because I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's right or responsible. But I think it's like, pursue it the best you can in the way that you can in your life. So that's a side hustle, if that's like learning online, if it's taking a course, if it's surrounding yourself with new mentors, I think that's a great way to start.
So beautiful, Emily.
Like, let me get off
for sharing that. Oh, it's such a good soapbox to be on. You know, as I was listening, I really appreciate you bringing in death. I think it's the same sweet spot, right? Know that we could die any day. For me, COVID-19 has definitely brought that home. I think I've faced the imminent reality of my death more in the last few weeks than I perhaps ever have, because even though the statistics are actually quite low, this sort of vulnerability is quite high. And there's not real, I mean, I've been in self-quarantine and then official quarantine for weeks now. It's almost a month, and I'm being very responsible. And also, like, I got a sore throat. It was like, you know, and it's like, who knows what could happen. And I just saw that like every day I got to do both. Like, I got to live the life that I would live if I knew I was going to die today. And I got to live the life that I want to live, hoping that I live for many decades. Yeah. And the work of living a good life, in my mind, and this has really just come clear in the last like week or so, is what happens when I let both of those sort of inquiries talk to each other and come together. That's the sweet spot. And it's not one or the other. It is both at the same time. So I love that you brought it home to these very like core essential values. I think it's very important for this audience to hear you speak about that.
Thank you. And I think the last thing that I want to impart too is, in a weird way, and a lot of people need to be reminded, this is not vacation, but if you were furloughed or if you're furloughed or laid off, or rather than coming from a place of scarcity and being like, oh my God, I need to get a job tomorrow. Really take a moment to look in the mirror and be like, what is the next step for your life? Like, if you were one of our members was doing events and she got furloughed and she's like, I don't know if I want to do events anymore. And, she's attending all of our events, fortunately, but she's also like introspective about what maybe she wants to pivot to digital marketing or use the same skill set, but apply it in a different way. So also take that time to like look inward. And then the second thing that I would say about that is there's a lot of moving pieces in the world right now, but the one thing that you can control is a routine. So I think having a routine during this time, be it being at like a workout class for me, what I've been doing, and I'm telling the whole world how to do this. And I think it's so fun. I've been sharing my workout classes every morning with, every time I'll get on a phone call, like Jessie's going to now be added to my workout morning routine, and she can opt in if she wants or not. But I've been including a Zoom link, and then I'll share my Zoom screen. And so I'm doing this workout now with people who are in Arizona and Connecticut and Denver. And it's so fun, but it also gets me out of bed. And there's accountability there, and they're accountable because they're like, oh, Emily's going to totally shame me if I'm not on this. But holding yourself or like creating those types of things, and same thing with like dinner with your family or dinner with a friend, and just putting those things on your calendar. And if there's something that you wanted to do, I have a friend that when you want something for your friend, you're like, I just want, this is your time. You can do your work. You can do the deep dive on yourself, but you can't, it needs to be at your own pace when you do this stuff. But like if you teletherapy or hiring a coach, or even just taking advantage of all of the coaches' 30 minutes consultation sessions, and just seriously, I mean, like do the WeWork of coaching right now. Like just use those free trials where you can. But start working on yourself now.
Thank you. That's the perfect note to end on. I'm super, super grateful, Emily. That was beautiful. I really want to encourage everyone watching to check out 6degreessociety.com and go to an event. Just experience Emily and her mastery there. It's like this thing that we got to do today is such a personal deep dive, and what she does when she's in her genius in that facilitation role is like another thing that's amazing to experience. So I highly recommend that. And Emily, like literally lifelong fan. Anything I can do to support you, I'm always here. I'm super, super grateful for our connection and your time today. Thank you.
Likewise, I'm so grateful too. I did a podcast today with Nikki Nash, and who I imagine because this world is just so small. And I was like, oh yeah, Trisha broke. And she's like, oh, I know Trisha. And that's how I got connected. So I love following those like little intros. You never know where those conversations or those 15-minute, 30-minute calls will lead you. So
yes,
take advantage.
Well, and take note of that. If you're watching this, you are one of those people too. You've been brought into this YouTube conversation for a reason. So take the time to ask yourself what that reason is. Let us know how we can support. If you have any questions or suggestions or feedback, put that information in the comments in the video, and I read every single one. So if there's any question that needs my attention or Emily's, we will get those responses to you.
Yeah, sure will. I love connecting people. Well, thanks for having me, Jessie. This is so fun.
So fun.
A deep conversation. And there's my triggering sounds in the background.
Emily, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being with us today. I can't wait for the next installment.
Likewise. Thank you.
Everything you want already.